We are joined now by a lawmaker who will take part in President Clinton's deposition next hour, Democratic Congresswoman Yasmin Ansari of Arizona. Thank you so much, Congresswoman, for taking the time ahead of today's deposition. I anticipate it's going to be a long day for you based on the groundwork that's been laid by the committee chairman. What answers are you seeking from the former president?
Yes, first of all, thank you so much for having me. We're on day 2 of this very important deposition as part of our Epstein investigation. I think yesterday ended up, not being productive, but today I'm looking forward to having President Clinton deposed. I think it's very important for accountability and for the American public to ultimately have answers directly from him. We know that President Clinton appears in the Epstein files, obviously had a relationship with both Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. I think for me, I want to understand the nature of that relationship, the context of some of the photos that came out in the files, the timeline of the relationship, and any other information that President Clinton may have in regard to other individuals in Epstein's orbit that may have known or been involved in any of the crimes. Ultimately, I'm taking this investigation very seriously, as oversight Democrats are, because the purpose of it is not to just bring forward as many people as possible, former presidents, et cetera, to make a spectacle out of it, but because we need answers and we need justice for the victim. So this deposition today sets a very important precedent, which is that presidents and former presidents will be asked to come before this committee. And I think Donald Trump needs to come before the Oversight Committee, given that he is mentioned in the Epstein files more than almost anybody else, with very serious allegations against him as well.
Right now, we're seeing James Comer, the chairman of the Oversight Committee, walking in along with other committee members. I wonder, are Democrats and Republicans aligned today on any lines of questioning?
We have not worked together on any lines of questioning. I do not trust the leadership of James Comer whatsoever as it pertains to this investigation. I think he not only does not have a strategy, I think he's been backed into a corner to do any of this. The fact that when he's asked about, let's say, Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, and cannot give a straight answer about the urgency of having him subpoenaed, that's unacceptable to me. And then you have other Republican members of the committee. Let's talk about Anna Paulina Luna, who took to social media last night to say that President Trump is exonerated. In what world is that any sort of reality? I mean, this is the most powerful person in this country and arguably the world, mentioned more than anybody else. And just this week, there's damning reporting from the New York Times and NPR and others have verified that the Department of Justice under Pam Bondi intentionally has withheld FBI investigations from a woman who, as a minor, said she was abused by Donald Trump. This is the dam is breaking on this issue, and these Republicans can continue to be complicit. But Americans across this country are outraged and deeply disturbed. And again, they're not serious, but I hope that they will be forced to take this seriously.
I'll note the DOJ has said they are looking into those reports of the missing files related to that woman you just mentioned, who has accused President Trump of abuse, as well as Jeffrey Epstein. Again, President Trump's denied any type of wrongdoing related to Jeffrey Epstein. We know Ghislaine Maxwell was involved in the Clinton Global Initiative, as Fallon just laid out for us. The New York Times sort of zooms in here, saying that she took part in budget discussions related to the first Clinton Global Initiative conference, discussed it with Clinton aides and the company that produced the inaugural event, and arranged to wire $1 million. Now, the Times notes the source of that money is unclear, but that Epstein was aware of the payment based on some emails. That was back in 2004, before Epstein's 2006 indictment. How much do you expect questions focused on this connection?
I expect quite a few questions about this. It came up yesterday as well. However, Secretary Clinton, was made clear that she was not really involved with the initiative, especially in the early days, given that she was a senator at the time, and made clear to the members that those are questions for the president himself. So I think, to give a sense of kind of the behind the scenes, many of the questions that were asked yesterday did actually pertain to President Clinton. And the response was that we should ask those questions today. So I expect to hear a lot about, that relationship in particular, the foundation, the Clinton Global Initiative. And again, the timeline matters, to your point of, when it became clear who Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein really are, when, what decisions came after that.
So you're saying you got really nothing from Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State. We did see during her deposition, Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert leaked a photo, which was, of course, this deposition supposed to be closed door, no footage. She sent this photo to a conservative social media personality. Was Boebert admonished by Chairman Comer? Were there any changes made to ensure something like that doesn't happen today?
It was a very tense moment in the room when this happened, and rightfully so. The secretary and her counsel and ourselves were outraged, especially because of the hypocrisy that Republicans are the ones who had demanded these rules and closed the meeting to press, even though we had asked for press to be in the room. The Congresswoman seemed very embarrassed. She apologized, and she said that she had asked staff whether or not she could post the photo and claimed that had been the case. I'll say Chairman Comer looked just confused and didn't really, he's not a decisive leader, so did not take any sort of action. But it was just made very clear that cannot happen again. We continue to make demands to have press come in the room after this, and the Republican majority denied that request. But they still allowed Congresswoman Boebert to stay. She will be back today, I believe. And yeah, it's unacceptable. And I think, again, they just don't take it seriously. Look at their social media before coming to the deposition yesterday. It's smiling group photos. This is a game to them. And they've been obsessed with the Clintons for decades. And so this was, a show and not really about the actual situation here, which is we're trying to find the perpetrators and get accountability for victims of child sex trafficking.
Congresswoman Yasamin Ansari, thank you very much for joining us.